It's Radio Merab on FM 105.8 MHz Oslo and Merab Tagaru YouTube channel. Diving deeper into the most important news items in the current events in Ethiopia. I'm your host, Gurmai Berhe. In the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, there is an air of the end of the regime, uncertainty and fear for the immediate future. We are all apprehensive. Premier Abiy continues to tell us lies. He keeps telling us that the TPLF has been defeated and that the rebel coalition will be annihilated before it reaches Addis Ababa. We know that he and several other ministers and generals are preparing an escape route should events precipitate. Their families are already safe abroad. We cannot escape. We can only hope that the new government does not want to avenge itself by raging on civilians. I advised my 19-year-old son to stop posting on Facebook in favor of the Abiy government. He does not listen to me and continues to publish the message that Abiy's propaganda service suggests to him. I fear for him. He is rumored that the TPLF and the OLA are registering all Facebook and Twitter users who post ethnic hatred and then persecute them. I'm desperate. I risk losing my second child. The firstborn died a month ago near Dessie. He was fighting for the Ethiopian National Defense Force against the Tigrayans. He was 22 years old. We live in a virtual reality. On TV, they tell us we will win, but we know we have already lost. I did not respond to the call to the arms. I'll not defend the capital because I know Abiy is negotiating his escape. This man deceived us from the beginning. Now I wonder what will become of us. The TPLF has never been soft on its enemies. Getachew Reda, Debretsion Gebremichael, Tzadkan Gebretensai are capable, but military political leaders who are unforgiving, now less than ever. Their people suffer genocide. Tigrayans now are very angry. I only hope that the Oromo can make the TPLF understand the difference between the people, the extremists, and the AMHARA leadership. The latter spoke in the name of the AMHARA, but never allowed us to express what we really felt. Our homeland is destroyed and our lives are in danger. These are some testimonies of the inhabitants of Addis Ababa, reached by telephone. Perhaps the last telephone call, the government has informed that it will monitor every phone call on WhatsApp and every post published on social networks. Ethiopian citizens who make comments against the regime's propaganda or who have contacts with foreigners will be accused of aiding and abetting terrorism and face 3 to 10 years in prison. The AMHARA leadership and Abiy Ahmed Ali are playing a double game towards the population and the nation. On the one hand, they are trying to organize resistance against the coalition of the democratic forces of Tigray, Oromia, Gambella, Gumuz, Somali regime, which are just outside the capital. On the other hand, they are negotiating for a transfer of power that will ensure exile, thus escaping justice. African diplomatic sources report that the new coalition continues to reject any compromise with the collapsing regime. The response of the TPLF and the Oromo Liberation Army is only one: unconditional surrender. The regime organized demonstrations against the democratic federalist forces, the political coalition destined to replace the Prosperity Party, and initiate national reconciliation through dialogue after the total defeat of the AMHARA regime. The aim of the regime's propaganda was to make people believe that the united front of federalist forces does not have popular support at all. Participation in the demonstrations may seem significant in number to those who do not know Ethiopia. Even Mengistu Haile Mariam managed to assemble 100,000 in his support 2 weeks before his fall. The international media have not given particular prominence to this desperate display of strength. Only state TV and the Prosperity Party media, Fana Broadcasting, known for its calls for genocide against Tigrayans and message of ethnic hatred, they are the ones who are making new stunts out of it. There is still fighting in the AMHARA regime, and the Tigrayan army, TDF, claims it has control of the A1 and 2 highways leading to Addis Ababa. Moreover, it has annihilated the fourth command of the Ethiopian National Defense Force in a first battle near Maqdala University. The increasingly weak defense of the AMHARA regime is now entrusted solely to the Fanorid genocidal militias and other minor nationalist AMHARA militias. The Federal Army is no longer fighting. The divisions of the ANDF, the Ethiopian National Defense Force, stationed in Addis Ababa, have joined, most of them, in the federal police, and are trying to create city militias to resist the advance of the, in quotation, rebel coalition. The militiamen will be organized by the army in defense of the Kabeles, neighborhoods of Addis Ababa. The army is also trying to bring retired former soldiers back into service. In Addis Ababa and Oromia, there are roundups of children aged 14 to 16 to use them as cannon fodder to make them consume TDF and Oromo Liberation Army bullets in the coming Battle of Addis Ababa. These roundups have resulted in the desertion of the majority of the Oromo Special Forces, who have now, many of them, joined the Oromo Liberation Army. Despite these attempts and crimes to reorganize the defense force, the ANDF no longer exists. Abiy Ahmed Ali and the AMHARA leadership made a gross mistake when they arrested over 17,000 Tigrayan officers between 2019 and 2020, destroying the Federal Army's chain of command and rendering it incapacitated. Since November 3, 2020, the ANDF has been has been led by totally incompetent officers who have commanded an army of semi-illiterate peasants and forcibly enlisted children. The Tigray troops have always shown strength, strong fighting. They have always strong fighting moral and a desire to win. There is a lot of discipline in the TPLF forces, the TDF troops, which are made up of highly educated people, not peasants, as in the resistance war against Mengistu's terror. The TPLF recruited doctors, engineers, diplomats, and trained them very well before sending them to the front. This is the secret of Tigray's victory, Kjetil Tromvor, a Norwegian conflict researcher, explains. The social network Twitter decided to temporarily disable its trend section in Africa to limit the spread of incitements to violence and genocide that are published on its social network, especially by AMHARA users recruited by the regime to spread fascist propaganda. We have learned also Facebook's decision to delete one of Abiy Ahmed's posts asking Ethiopians to bury TPLF terrorists by portraying Tigrayans as rats to be thrown back into the sewers. The dying AMHARA regime is protesting against the decisions of Twitter and Facebook, defining the two social giants as supporters of the Ethiopian terrorism. It also accused Reuters, New York Times, The Guardian, and other international media of spreading disinformation by falsely reporting that some seats have fallen to the hands of the enemy when the latter is defeated, referring to the TDF and the Oromo Liberation Army. The regime has again accused international NGOs of supporting the terrorists of Tigray and Oromia, spreading unfounded rumors that damage the image of the country. By breaking all diplomatic norms, the regime has accused the Western embassies of spreading the false claim that Addis Ababa is surrounded by the enemy. As reported by the Addis Standard newspaper, the regime accuses Western ambassadors of coordinating with the aim of creating suspicion and doubts in public opinion and in the Ethiopian Defense Forces. The European Parliament this time managed to overcome the opposition of Italy, France, Portugal, and Spain, which for over months had been blocking the implementation of sanctions against those responsible for the war and the humanitarian crisis in Tigray. Now, the European Union is ready to issue sanctions. Confirmed by the European Union High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, accused of having tolerated the massacre of civilians throughout Ethiopia and the genocide in Tigray, perpetuated by the nationalist AMHARA regime and Eritrea for 12 months, the European Union replied that it had blocked $107 million in the previous months to support the state budget of Ethiopia. Even the latest ally of Premier Abiy Ahmed, the Turkish dictator Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has abandoned the Ethiopian emperor, the seventh emperor Abiy Ahmed Ali. The Ottoman regime has distanced itself from the Prosperity Party and Premier Abiy by stating that Turkey wants friendly relations with all Ethiopian ethnic groups and political forces, proposing itself as a peacemaker to avoid a bloodbath in the capital. TPLF and Oromo Liberation Army rejected the mediation proposal. According to United States intelligence sources, Turkey has sold $51 million worth of weapons to the AMHARA regime since last August, including at least 14 combat drones, a mountain of weapons that have served no purpose. To this must be added the weapons and ammunition sold by China, Iran, and Russia. Is there any negotiation possibility to avoid the urban battle of Addis Ababa? According, again, to the Norwegian researcher Kjetil Tromvold, no. There will be no negotiated takeover. We can only expect the final escalation of the ongoing conflict. The TPLF has no interest in assuming power through political means. It wants to overthrow Abiy and reach a transition agreement with the Oromo and other Ethiopian regimes. Abiy's political career is over. He can only escape and go into exile. Faced with a situation like this, international peace efforts have come too late. And even worse, most of the diplomats who are committed to peace mediation are unfamiliar with the intricacies of Ethiopia, with the people, with the sentiment of the antagonistic parties, Tromvold said. Yesterday, in an interview with the German newspaper, Deutsche Welle, although the end of the regime is near, ethnic vendettas still continue. On Wednesday, Professor Marag from Tigray was killed by the paramilitary Fano militia. Professor Marag was a lecturer at the University of Bahir Dar, the capital city of Amhara, and was killed because of his Tigrayan origin. 2 weeks earlier, 2 other Tigrayan professors had been savagely lynched at the University of Wollo, again also in Amhara. Well, this was today's update on Radio Merab. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you.
እና ልዘፍን አይደለም የመጣሁኝ። በደስታውን ባዘን መስፈን ብቻ ነው እንዴ? የሚዘፈንና የማይዘፈን ቃል ይወቃ። እኔም ራሴ የቱ ጋር ቆመ ልስፈን? የቱ ጋር ቆመ ልዘምር? የቱ ጋር ቆመ ልናገር? እንደዚህ ተጣቧል ሰፈሩ። እኔ የሚዘፍነውም የለም ምናገረውም የለም። በዘፈኑም ካልተማረን በመዝሙሩም ካልተማረን ምዘፈን ነገር የለም። አሁን ምዘመርም ነገር የለም። በመዝሙሩም አልተማርንም። በቤተ ክርስቲያን በሚያስተምሩ